Okay, picture this. It's the tail end of the 19th century. Physicists. Well, they were feeling pretty good about themselves. Maybe a little too good.
Yeah, you could say that. They had Newton, they had Maxwell's equations for electromagnetism,
Right.
and the feeling was, well, we basically figured it all out. The universe is, pretty much understood.
I read one quote, someone saying physics was nearly completed. Can you imagine? Just needed to tidy up a few decimal points.
It's incredible hubris, really,
Uh,
because almost immediately, boom, that whole neat picture just shattered.
Completely. Suddenly you got things like X-rays showing up, the electron gets discovered, radioactivity.
Stuff that just didn't fit. It flew in the face of classical mechanics. It basically forced a complete rethink of, well, everything.
Yeah.
And that's what kicked off the real tech revolution of the 20th century.
And, it feels like we're kind of there again, doesn't it? Standing at a similar point. The late 20th century dropped its own set of baffling clues.
Absolutely, especially with quantum technology. We're looking at things now that just flat out contradict everyday common sense. Reality itself seems weird.
It really does. Like, the ideas coming out of labs sound like, well, science fiction, or maybe even magic.
Exactly. You hear about instant data transfer, no wires needed, detecting something without actually, looking at it. Objects being in multiple places at once.
It breaks all the rules we thought we knew. Probability, cause and effect. It all gets fuzzy. So today, that's our mission. We're doing a deep dive to connect this really out there science, specifically something called orthogonal multiverse coordinate change, with a couple of pretty strange things.
Right. We've got this missing history professor, Edward Johnston, and this super secretive company, International Technology Corporation, ITC.
Yeah, ITC. We need to unpack the theory behind their tech, understand the, frankly, terrifying physical risks involved. They call them transcription errors.
Which sounds pretty clinical for something potentially horrific.
Exactly. And then there's the destination. They're applying this tech to what they call experimental history. But the place they're going, 14th century France, specifically 1357.
And not the romanticized version either. We're talking brutal, lawless, war-torn reality.
So it's this collision course, right? Cutting edge, maybe reality-breaking physics slamming right into the mud and blood of the High Middle Ages. That's what we're digging into. Okay, so this quantum revolution, let's try and get our heads around it. Because the stuff coming out of research in the 90s, it wasn't just making things a bit faster or smaller.
No, not at all. It was suggesting a fundamental shift in what's even possible, like the basic rules were changing.
So where do we even start? How do you build technology when common sense just doesn't apply anymore?
Well, you start where classical physics breaks down at the really, really small scale, the subatomic level. And one of the most mind-bending examples in the source material is this idea of interaction-free detection.
Finding something without looking at it.
Yeah, it sounds impossible, right? But they actually demonstrated this.
That's the Los Alamos experiment you mentioned with the human hair.
That's the one. They measured the thickness of a human hair with a laser beam that, and this is the crazy part, never actually hit the hair.
Okay, wait. How does that even work?
It's all down to quantum weirdness, uncertainty, wave-particle duality, stuff like that. Basically, they set up this really sensitive system where light could take one of two paths.
Okay.
If the hair is placed on one path, its mere presence, even if the light goes down the other path, forces the whole system into a particular quantum state. It changes the probabilities.
So the possibility of the light hitting the hair is enough, even if it doesn't actually happen.
Exactly. The potential influences the actual. You find out about the hair by measuring something about the path the light didn't take. Physicists call it counterfactual information.
Wow. Okay, so potential realities are actually leaking into ours in a way.
That's a good way to put it. And that idea that potential can influence the actual is kind of the bedrock for what ITC is trying to do. It also connects to that other weird thing, instant information transfer.
The quantum internet idea.
Yeah. Sending perfectly secure messages instantly over huge distances, no wires. It relies on something called entanglement.
Where two particles become linked, right? Like they share the same fate no matter how far apart they are.
Precisely. You measure or change the state of one particle its spin, say, in the other one, instantly reflects that change, even if it's miles away. Or light years away, theoretically.
So information is moving faster than light, which Einstein said was impossible.
Well, it's tricky. It's not quite sending a message faster than light in the conventional sense, but the correlation is instantaneous. Distance becomes irrelevant for that connection. And by 1995, they were sending secure quantum messages over like 8 miles.
Okay. And that leads us to teleportation. Not like Star Trek, maybe, but the experiments in '98. Innsbruck, Rome, Caltech.
Right. Jeff Kimball at Caltech made a key comment. He said they could transport the quantum state of one thing onto another.
The state, not the thing itself.
Exactly. All the information that describes a particle, its spin, its polarization, its position, everything. They could copy that quantum blueprint and impress it onto another particle instantaneously.
So you're destroying the original and creating a perfect copy somewhere else based on the information.
Essentially, yes. At least at the single particle level.
Yeah.
And Kimball and others were already talking about trying it with something more complex, like maybe a bacterium.
A living thing.
Yeah. So the basic principle ITC needed encoding and transmitting the information of a physical object, it was already being proven in labs. They just needed to scale it up a lot to handle something as complex as a person. Hashtag tag 1.2, the many worlds theory is fact.
Okay, so we have these bizarre quantum effects, interaction-free detection, entanglement, teleportation. But for a long time, the math worked, but nobody really knew what it meant, right? Schrodinger's wave equations.
That was the big problem for decades. The math was incredibly accurate, predicted experiments perfectly. But what did it say about reality? The equations suggested a particle didn't have definite properties like spin up or spin down.
Yeah.
Until you actually measured it.
Until an observer looked.
Right. Before the measurement, it existed in this weird, fuzzy state, a superposition of all possibilities at once.
That's Schrodinger's cat, isn't it? The cat in the box that's somehow both alive and dead until you open it and look.
Exactly. Schrödinger actually proposed that thought experiment to show how absurd the implications seemed when scaled up from particles to, cats. He thought it highlighted a flaw in the theory.
But then Hugh Everett came along in 1957 with a completely different take.
He did. His many worlds interpretation. It was radical, but it elegantly solved the measurement problem, the observer issue. He basically said the particle doesn't collapse into one state when you measure it.
So what happens instead?
The entire universe splits. Yeah. At the moment of measurement or interaction, reality branches. In one branch, the particle is spin up, the cat is alive. In another, absolutely identical branch, the particle is spin down, the cat is dead.
So everything that can happen does happen, just in different parallel universes.
That's the core idea. No more wave function collapse, no more special role for the observer. Just interbranching tree of realities. Every quantum event, every choice point creates new universes.
So there's a universe where I didn't have coffee this morning. A universe where, I don't know, dinosaurs still rule the earth.
Infinite possibilities, infinite universes.
Yeah.
A universe where Hitler won World War II. A universe where you're a famous movie star. Everything.
Yeah.
Our reality is just one path through this immense multiverse.
Okay, that sounds huge and maybe a bit convenient. Like, how could you ever prove something like that? If every outcome happens, doesn't that make physics untestable?
But that's where it gets really interesting. Because there is empirical proof, strong proof.
Yeah.
And it comes from perhaps the most famous experiment in quantum physics, the double slit experiment.
Right. The one with light going through two slits, let's walk through that because it's key.
Okay, simple setup. Shine a light source at a barrier with two narrow vertical slits in it. Behind the barrier, there's a screen.
And because light behaves like a wave, the waves passing through the two slits interfere with each other, like ripples in a pond.
Exactly. And that interference creates a pattern on the screen behind the slits, a series of light and dark bands. Classic wave behavior.
Okay, standard stuff, but then they tweaked it, right?
They did. They turned the light source way, way down so that only one particle of light went through the apparatus at a time.
Just one single photon. Logically, you'd think it has to go through either the left slit or the right slit.
Right. And if it's just one particle, it can't interfere with anything. So you'd expect to just see two bright lines on the screen right behind the slits where the photons piled up.
Makes sense. But that's not what happens.
Not at all. Even sending photons through one by one, slowly building up the picture, you still get the interference pattern. The bright and dark bands reappear.
How? How can a single photon interfere with anything?
The only thing it can interfere with is itself.
It interferes with itself.
According to the many worlds interpretation, yes. The inference is stunning. The photon goes through, say, the left slit in our universe,
Okay.
but it simultaneously goes through the right slit in another parallel universe.
Yeah.
And these parallel versions of the photon interact, they interfere across universes, creating the pattern we observe.
So the pattern itself is evidence of other universes interacting with ours.
That's the interpretation. It turns the many worlds idea from a wild theory into something with observable consequences. It's physical evidence that other realities exist and that, at the quantum level at least, they're connected to ours.
And that's the loophole ITC is exploiting, that connection, hashtag tag tag 1.3 ITC's space travel technology.
Exactly. They figured if these universes exist and interact, maybe you can do more than just observe interference. Maybe you can move between them.
They call it orthogonal multiverse coordinate change. Let's break that down. Orthogonal, that means at a right angle, right?
Yeah, mathematically. Think of our reality as having 4 dimensions, 3 of space, 1 of time. Imagine that as one line, one axis. Orthogonal means moving perpendicular to that entire axis.
So not traveling forward or backward in our time.
No. That avoids all the messy time paradoxes, like the grandfather paradox. You're not changing your own past.
You're moving sideways,
Yeah.
laterally.
That's the idea. Accessing a different universe, a parallel reality that just happens to be running alongside ours, chronologically speaking. So they aim for a universe that looks like our 1357.
Okay. But how do you physically move a person sideways into another universe? Gordon, the ITC guy, used a fax machine analogy.
Right. Which is helpful, up to a point. You can't squeeze a whole person through the tiny fleeting connections between universes, these hypothetical quantum foam wormholes.
So you have to send the information instead, like faxing a document.
Exactly. But the amount of information needed to perfectly describe a living human being, every atom, every molecule, every neural connection, every memory is astronomical. Absolutely vast.
Way beyond what normal computers can handle.
Orders of magnitude beyond. This is where their quantum computer comes in. Normal computers use bit zeros or ones.
Binary.
Right. But a quantum computer uses qubits. And ITC's machine, according to the source, used 32 quantum states of an electron simultaneously.
32 states at once, not just 0 or 1.
Correct. This gives you an exponential increase in processing power. Instead of, say, 32,000 processors like a regular supercomputer, this thing effectively had 32 billion processors working in parallel.
Wow, okay. So that gives them the power to scan a person, describe them completely, and compress all that data into an electron stream.
A massively compressed data stream, yeah, which they then beam through one of these quantum foam wormholes, these tiny unstable shortcuts in the fabric of space-time that supposedly connect universes. Think of it like threading a needle through reality.
Sending the fax through the multiverse phone line.
Kind of. But here's where the analogy breaks down and where it gets really weird and quite mysterious. The reconstitution.
How does the person get rebuilt on the other side?
That's the secret sauce. And the terrifying part. The machine sending the data does not rebuild the person over there.
It doesn't, so there's no receiver machine assembling them atom by atom.
Apparently not. That would be incredibly complex, prone to errors, and probably impossible anyway. Instead, they claim the process leverages some fundamental characteristic of the multiverse itself.
Like gravity or inertia, something that's just there.
That seems to be the idea. The transmission process, the data stream arriving, acts like a trigger. It synchronizes the traveler's quantum state, their entire wave function, with a version of themselves that already exists in the target universe.
Wait, so in the multiverse, there's already a version of me physically present in 1357 France.
If there are infinite universes, then yes. Every possible configuration exists somewhere. The ITC tech finds that counterpart and essentially overwrites their state with yours. It's like a quantum handover, snapping your consciousness and physical form into that pre-existing body.
Instantaneous.
Instantaneously. It's not construction, it's synchronization.
Yeah. Okay. That's deeply strange. And also sounds incredibly dangerous. What if the synchronization isn't perfect? What if the signal gets garbled?
Then you get transcription errors, the split, the horrific physical cost we talked about.
Yeah.
If you're trying to merge or overwrite quantum states, and if it goes wrong, the results are fundamentally broken.
Which explains why this is such a high-risk gamble, but someone was willing to take it. For history.
Yeah, the driving force behind using this incredibly dangerous tech wasn't just pure science, it was history. Specifically, Professor Johnston's vision of experimental history.
He believed you couldn't truly understand the past just from books and ruins, right? You had to experience it.
Exactly. Immerse yourself in it. So he assembled this team of brilliant grad students, Merrick, Chris, Kate, Stern, and set up shop excavating these ruins in France. The monastery of Sainte-Mère, the town of Castelgard.
All funded by ITC,
Yeah.
which seemed odd for a tech company, maybe.
Definitely. But ITC had its own agenda. Johnston's team included specialists like André Marek. And Marek wasn't just reading about the 14th century, he was trying to become medieval.
How so?
He was a fanatic for authenticity. Mastered the languages Middle English, Occitan, which was the local dialect, Old French, Latin. He learned to fight like a knight jousting broadsword, learned the longbow, how to ride their war horses.
So he could blend in, survive.
Both. He understood that just showing up in medieval clothes wasn't enough. You had to move right, talk right, fight right, or you'd be dead in minutes.
Yeah.
It was practical survival skill, married to deep historical knowledge.
But why was ITC bankrolling all this? What was in it for them?
That comes down to the CEO, Robert Doninger, and his rather cynical philosophy about the future.
What was his take?
Doninger believed that modern life was becoming increasingly fake, saturated with corporate artifice, virtual experiences, everything curated and synthesized.
Okay, I can see that argument.
And he figured people would eventually crave authenticity, something real. And what's more real, more undeniably authentic than the past?
Because it happened before all the modern corporate branding and simulation.
Precisely. He literally said the past is unarguably authentic. He saw it as the ultimate untapped market. The future's most valuable commodity wouldn't be tech. It would be genuine historical reality.
So the historians weren't just researchers.
They were scouts, pathfinders. They were mapping out this vanished world so ITC could eventually package it, sell access to it. Imagine, like, historical tourism, but using multiverse tech. High-fidelity, authentic experiences of the past.
The past they were scouting was incredibly violent and dangerous. Who would pay for that kind of authenticity? Seems like a flaw in the business plan.
That's the huge gamble Doninger was taking. He seemed to think the danger was part of the appeal, the thrill. Maybe people would view it from safe zones or take super-controlled, high-risk tours. He fundamentally underestimated the brutality, I think, and overestimated ITC's ability to control it.
He saw authenticity, but maybe didn't fully grasp the cost of that authenticity. Hashtag 2.2, the medieval world in focus.
And the destination they chose really highlights that cost. 1357, Dordogne region of France. We call it the High Middle Ages, but for this specific place and time, it was chaos.
Why then? Why there?
It was right in the middle of the 100 Years' War. England had just crushed France at the Battle of Poitiers the year before, captured the French king. So English and Gascon mercenaries, unemployed soldiers, bandits basically, were running rampant. It was a lawless frontier zone.
And specific location, Castelgard and La Roque.
There were castles held by an English knight, Sir Oliver de Van, a notoriously brutal guy, apparently earned the nickname the Butcher of Crecy.
Charming.
Yeah. And just as our team is interested in this place, Sir Oliver is facing an invasion himself. About 2,000 mercenaries, brigands really, led by a man named Arnaud de Serval.
Arnaud de Serval, the archpriest.
That's him, a defrocked priest turned warlord. So you've got English occupiers fighting French mercenary invaders and the local peasants caught in the middle. Constant fear, shifting loyalties, sudden violence. That was the backdrop.
Not exactly knights in shining armor and fair maidens.
Not even close. And the historians' first-hand observations, once they got there using the tech, immediately blew up those romantic myths. Merrick, the combat expert, watched actual medieval sword fights.
And what was it like?
Incredibly fast. Not the slow, heavy clanging you see in movies. He described it as more like fencing, but with heavier weapons. Constant, rapid slashes and thrusts, maybe a second or two between impacts, required unbelievable speed and stamina.
And the knights themselves.
Physically different. The nobility were literally a different breed back then, much better fed from birth, trained for war constantly. Merrick saw them fighting furiously, barely breaking a sweat, while common soldiers tired quickly. Their physical advantage was huge.
And Chris, another student, he observed the English longbowmen.
Yeah, and it terrified him. The history books said they could shoot maybe 20 arrows a minute. Chris saw it happen. Volley after volley, a literal storm of arrows raining down.
That explains Crecy and Poitiers, how a smaller English force could decimate the French knights.
Absolutely. It wasn't just the bow. It was the rate of fire, the discipline. It was like facing machine guns for the time. Utterly devastating.
And Kate, the architecture student, she noticed details about daily life too, right? Things that really hit home, how different things were.
She did, like the roofs. In Castelgard, the houses had these incredibly thick, heavy stone roofs called lauses, overlapping slabs of rock.
Why so heavy?
Fire resistance, mostly.
Yeah.
And probably protection from siege weapons, rocks dropped from castle walls, things like that. But the really striking thing she noticed...
What was that?
No chimneys.
No chimneys at all.
None. This was a world before the widespread adoption of the chimney. Think about that. People cooked and heated their homes with open fires inside.
So where did the smoke go?
Out vents in the walls, maybe? Or just holes in the roof? Kate described the air inside buildings as constantly thick with smoke, irritating your eyes, your lungs, everything smelling intensely of wood smoke, sweat, damp wool.
Ugh, sounds miserable.
It's such a visceral detail, isn't it? It's not just a historical fact. It's a sensory reality check. This wasn't just inconvenient. It meant poor air quality, respiratory problems, maybe contributing to disease. Add that to the constant threat of violence. It paints a grim picture of authentic medieval life. Hashtag tag tick 2.3 initial contamination and the missing scientist.
And the dangers weren't just in the past. The technology itself was already failing back in the present. The first sign was Joseph Traub.
Right. ITC's top scientist on the project. Found wandering in the Arizona desert, completely out of his mind.
Dressed in these weird brown robes.
Yeah, like a monk's habit, and muttering this bizarre rhyme over and over. The quantum phone made me roam. Quantum phone.
Strange. And the police officer who found him, Officer Wanika, noticed something odd, didn't she?
Very odd. Traub was clearly distressed, disoriented. But he had no signs of having been out in the desert sun. No sunburn, no dehydration. It was like he just appeared there.
Materialized.
And pinned to his robe was one of ITC's ceramic chips. Not exactly standard desert attire.
Then the medical exam. Dr. Sosi found physical problems too, right?
Deeply disturbing ones. His fingers and toes were cold, turning purple. Looked like early gangrene. But the MRI scan was the real shocker. It showed his smallest arteries, the arterioles. They were offset.
Offset, like misaligned.
Yeah. Structurally mismatched, like they hadn't been put back together quite right. It was preventing proper blood flow.
So not a disease, a physical error,
Yeah.
a construction flaw almost.
Exactly. This was the first concrete evidence of the split, the transcription error happening to a human. His body was literally wrong at a micro level because the reconstitution process had failed.
And Doniger, the CEO, he knew what this meant.
Oh, yeah. He went into full cover-up mode immediately. Had Traub's car dumped miles away in the desert, made it look like he'd just wandered off. The moment Traub died in the hospital.
He had the body cremated instantly.
Wiped the evidence. He later admitted Traub had actually been attacked in 1357 by Arnaut de Servol's men, the archpriest, again right before he could get back to the receiving point. So his condition was a mix of medieval violence and the machine failing on recall. It proved the whole system was unstable.
And then Kate finds something back in the monastery ruins, in the present-day excavation, something that links Traub's failure to the missing Professor Johnston.
Right. Down in the catacombs beneath the monastery, she finds this old oilcloth package. Inside, a single lens from a pair of glasses.
Just a lens.
But it was weird. Scientific tests showed it was genuinely old. It had this layer of bacterial rock varnish, which takes centuries to form, so it'd been lying there a long, long time.
Okay.
But it was a bifocal lens with the sharp, distinct line characteristic of modern lens grinding techniques, not something from the 14th century.
Modern tech, ancient context. And the prescription.
Perfect match for Professor Johnston's own eyeglasses.
Oh, wow. So Johnston had been down in those catacombs in 1357, and he'd lost or left behind part of his modern glasses.
Exactly. It proved he'd been there, maybe was captured there. It shifted everything. The mission wasn't just about digging up ruins anymore. They had to go back, using the flawed, dangerous tech to rescue their professor. The past was literally bleeding into the present.
So they decide they have to go back. But before they send the team, Stern, the physicist on the team, he insists they confront the full reality of what can go wrong.
Yeah, he made Gordon, the ITC executive, show them the unvarnished truth about transcription errors, about the split.
Because it wasn't just a theoretical risk anymore after Traub.
Exactly. These errors happen when the synchronization, that quantum handover between universes, isn't perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe the shielding on the machine isn't good enough. Maybe there's interference. Maybe the data stream gets corrupted.
And the result isn't just like a glitch, it's physical deformity.
Grotesque deformity, because you're essentially trying to overlay one quantum reality onto another, and if they don't match perfectly, things get added or subtracted or misaligned.
Gordon showed them an example, didn't he? An animal.
Yeah. They had this poor cat, kept institutionalized, that they called HG. It was an extreme example of what could happen.
What did it look like? The description was vivid.
It was chilling. One side of the cat's face looked basically normal, but right down the middle, like a line was drawn, the other side was shifted, dropped lower, like it had been slammed down.
Just offset.
Offset, yeah. But also additive. Behind the distorted ear on the bad side, there was a third eye. Partially formed, wet, useless. And below that, a patch of what looked like extra nose. And part of the jawbone sticking out at a weird angle.
Oh, God. Like pieces from another version of the cat got mixed in?
That's exactly what it looked like. A physical manifestation of two slightly different realities being forced together improperly. A quantum error made flesh.
And it wasn't just physical. They mentioned a human case, too, Rob Deckard, a Marine.
Right. Deckard was one of the early test subjects, apparently. And with him, the damage showed up mentally before the physical deformities became obvious.
What happened to him?
He started changing, became angry, erratic, violent. The source says he turned mean, he assaulted a guard, had violent outbursts. Only later did the physical signs, like a strange scar appearing down his face, start to show.
So the brain is affected first, because it's so complex.
That was Doniger's deepest fear. The human mind, the personality, consciousness itself, that's the most complex quantum information to transfer accurately. So errors hit there first. Psychosis, personality disintegration. Then the body follows.
It proved the technology wasn't just risky. It was fundamentally messing with the very structure of a person, mind, and body.
Yeah, it wasn't just about tweaking the machine. They were playing with fire at the deepest level of reality. And yet, they still had to send the team back to get Johnston. Yeah. Hashtag tag 3.2, the field mission, and immediate failure.
So the pressure is immense. They have a very short window. The source says 36 hours before the specific quantum alignment they need to get back closes.
Right. The multiverse coordinates only line up correctly for a limited time.
So the team goes. Merrick, the medieval expert, Chris, the other historian, Kate, the architect, and crucially, 2 security escorts from ITC, Barreto and Gomez.
Their lives literally depended on those escorts. Because only the escorts had the nav markers, the ceramic devices needed to trigger the return sequence.
And the rules were crystal clear. Stick together, no modern stuff, let the escorts handle any trouble.
Basic common sense for dropping into a 14th century war zone. But Barreto, the male guard, he broke the rules immediately.
What did he do?
Smuggled a modern pistol under his robes. Completely against protocol. Thought he knew better, I guess.
Not smart. So they materialize.
Where? On a path near the Monastery Saint-Mère, their target location. But they barely have time to get their bearings.
Sorrel finds them fast.
Instantly. 6 knights in full armor come charging out of the woods on massive war horses, leading them. Sir Guy de Malagund, one of Oliver's brutal commanders, recognizable by his black plumed helmet.
Oh, man. So total ambush. Yeah. What happened?
Over in seconds. Pure chaos. Barreto, the guard with the gun, panics. He tries to draw his pistol.
Big mistake.
Huge. One of the charging horses slams right into him. The impact must have triggered his emergency recall because the machine just yanked him back to the present. Instantly. Dead. Lying there in the receiving chamber back in New Mexico, the forbidden pistol still clutched in his hand.
And Gomez, the other escort.
Sir Guy was on her in a flash, leaned right down from his saddle, swung his broadsword.
Oh, no.
Decapitated her cleanly. Her body fell and the horses just trampled over her. And crucially, over the ceramic return marker she was carrying.
Destroyed.
Utterly pulverized beneath the hooves. Gone.
So in maybe 10 seconds, their entire security detail is gone. One dead back in the present, one decapitated. And the primary way home is smashed to bits.
Exactly. Leaving the 3 academics, Merrick, Chris, Cake, standing there alone, in monk robes. Surrounded by killers, with no weapons, no guards, and as far as they knew, absolutely no way back, ever.
Chris's reaction in the source. We were trapped here. Not ever.
That just captures the sheer terror, the finality of it.
Yeah. The mission went from rescue to pure survival in the blink of an eye. Stranded 700 years in the past. Hashtag tag 3.3, the final return marker discovery.
Okay, so they're stranded. Their only known way home, Gomez's nav marker, is dust under a horse's hoof. That feeling must have been just crushing, absolute despair.
Merrick confirmed it. He checked where Gomez fell. Nothing left of the marker. It seemed completely hopeless.
But then Kate. She remembered something.
Yeah, Kate. The architect, the one with the eye for detail. Amidst the panic and shock, she recalled a conversation she'd overheard earlier. Something Gomez, the female escort, had said.
What was it?
Gomez had mentioned, almost casually, that she always carried a spare marker, just in case.
A spare? Okay, that's a lifeline. Where was it, did she say?
No, that was the problem. Gomez hadn't said where she kept it. It wasn't in an obvious pouch or pocket. It was hidden, very cleverly hidden.
So they had to find it, which meant, oh, God. They had to go back to Gomez's body. Worse, they had to find her severed head.
Oh, man, that's grim.
Incredibly grim. Kate, who was also described as a climber, someone physically capable, had to steel herself and do it. Go back to the spot, find the head amidst the chaos, and search it.
The source material describes her revulsion, but also her determination. Survival instinct kicking in.
Totally. She had to push past the horror. She checked the clothing remnants near the head first, the pockets in the habit Gomez wore. Nothing.
Then what?
Then she noticed the wig. Gomez had been wearing a wig common for women trying to pass as someone of rank, or just for disguise. Kate lifted it, and there it was, taped securely to the inside mesh of the wig, right against where the scalp would have been, the spare ceramic marker.
Wow. Hidden inside the wig. Smart, but also grisly place to recover it from.
Extremely. But it was her only chance. Merrick confirmed it was the right device, tiny ceramic barely bigger than a thumbnail, with his minuscule activation button you needed a fingernail to press properly.
That tiny thing held their entire hope of getting home.
Yeah. Suddenly, they weren't just trapped survivors anymore. They had a goal again. Find Johnston, protect that fragile marker at all costs, and use it to get back. The mission was back on, but the stakes were impossibly high.
Okay, they have the spare marker. They're still alive. But now they're deep in enemy territory, and they know the bad guys are dangerous. Sir Guy, Sir Oliver.
And they quickly realize they have another massive problem. They try to use one of the secret passages Merrick knows about from his research to get out of the Great Hall at Castleguard, where they first encountered Sir Guy.
And they get caught.
Almost immediately. Sir Guy's men are waiting for them. It's too perfect. Merrick realizes they aren't just guessing their movements.
How do they know?
The earpiece, Gomez's earpiece, it wasn't just a receiver, it had a bone conduction microphone. When Sir Guy killed her, someone must have picked up the earpiece. It was still active, still transmitting.
Oh no, so the enemy was literally listening in on their panicked whispers, their plans.
Everything. Every word they said was being fed directly to Sir Guy, or maybe his associate, this other shady knight named Sir Robert de Kir. Their own advanced tech had become a trap, betraying their every move.
That's terrifying. Meanwhile, where's Professor Johnston in all this?
They figure out he's been taken by Lord Oliver, the Butcher of Creasy, to his main fortress, La Roque. Oliver's facing that big siege from Arnott the Archpriest, and he needs experts.
And Johnston, the historian, becomes his unwilling military consultant.
Exactly. They start calling him the Magister. And Johnston, to his credit, is playing it smart. He's using his knowledge of future technology, well, future to them, to make himself indispensable to stay alive.
What kind of knowledge?
He introduced Oliver to corn gunpowder. Black powder existed then, but it was crude, inconsistent. Corn powder granulated, like we know, is a huge improvement. More stable, much more powerful, didn't absorb moisture as easily.
When was corn powder actually invented?
Not commonly used until around 1400. So Johnston gave Oliver a significant military edge, about 40 years early.
Clever. What else?
He also showed them how to make better incendiary weapons, based on recipes for Greek fire. Stuff using oil, sulfur, and quicklime. The key is quicklime ignites when it hits water. Imagine firing that at wooden siege towers or ships.
Deadly. So Johnston is basically buying his life with advanced military tech.
Pretty much. He made himself too valuable for the brutal Sir Oliver to just kill outright, at least for the moment.
So Merrick and Kate have to get to La Roque to rescue him. How do they do that?
They use Merrick's research again. Disguised as monks, they navigate through the ruins of the monastery of Saint-Omer, which Arnott's forces had already attacked and burned. They find another secret passage system mentioned in old texts.
Where does it lead?
To a watermill complex, vital for supplying La Roque.
Wow.
But it's defended by Oliver's men, including that suspicious character, Sir Robert de Kir.
De Kir again. He seems to be everywhere.
Yeah, he's clearly one of Oliver's key lieutenants, and seems to have it in for the newcomers. To get past the mill defenses, they have to cross this narrow, slippery passage right over the giant churning water wheel.
Sounds dangerous.
Extremely. Merrick goes first, makes it across. Kate follows, but de Kir spots her. He tries to grab her while she's balanced over the water.
What does she do? She doesn't have a weapon, does she?
She has one thing. The only piece of modern offensive tech they brought, besides Barretto's confiscated pistol. A small aluminum cylinder.
What is in it?
Ethylene dihydride gas. 12 doses. Highly flammable stuff.
And she uses it.
In desperation, yeah. As de Kir lunges, she activates the canister. The gas floods the confined space of the old wooden mill, which is already full of smoke from the fighting.
Oh, boy.
Boom. Massive explosion. The flammable gas ignites instantly, blows the mill structure apart. De Kir is thrown through the wreckage into the river below. Kate also falls into the water, but manages to get away.
Wow, so Kate just blew up a medieval watermill with future gas.
Pretty much. A desperate move, but it created a diversion, took de Kir out of the picture temporarily, and crippled Oliver's supply route. It was their first real strike back against the medieval world, using their knowledge offensively. Hashtag tag tag 4.2, the climax at Lowok and escape.
Okay, the clock is really ticking now. The source says they have less than 6 hours left before the return window closes forever. They finally get to Laroque, Johnston's location.
And it's chaos. Arnott's siege is in full swing. Men are scaling the walls, arrows flying, fires burning. Oliver knows he's probably going to lose.
So what's his plan for Johnston and Merrick, who he now knows is also inside?
He decides they're loose ends. Too dangerous to let them fall into Arnott's hands. His plan is simple. Kill them both in the dungeon before the castle falls.
But Johnston has one more card to play.
A brilliant one. He guesses correctly that Oliver hasn't kept his vast personal fortune gold, jewels, his liquid wealth back at Castleguard. He must have moved it to Laroque, thinking it was safer.
He calls Oliver out on it.
Yeah. Basically says, your treasure's here, isn't it? By confirming Laroque holds the treasure, Johnston forces Oliver to defend this specific place to the bitter end, which means Oliver needs Johnston's technical advice right up until the last second. Git buys them precious time.
Smart. How do Merrick, Kate, and Chris get inside Laroque during the siege?
They find yet another secret passage Merrick suspected might exist. A drain pipe connected to an underground river that emerges inside the castle's main water well.
Seriously, up through the well?
Yeah, they climb out soaking wet into the middle of the besieged castle courtyard. Total mayhem.
And then Kate has her big confrontation with Sir Guy.
Right. In the chaos of the Great Hall, Sir Guy spots her. He's enraged, probably blaming her and her friends for everything. He chases her.
Where does she go?
Up. Kate's the climber. She scrambles up into the high rafters of the Great Hall, 60 feet above the floor. It's described as this terrifying free climb on smoke-slicked wooden beams.
And Sir Guy follows her. Isn't he afraid of heights?
The source says he's terrified of heights, but his hatred for her overcomes his fear. He follows her out onto these narrow 6-inch beams.
What happens up there?
Kate makes a risky jump across a gap between beams. Guy tries to follow, and he misses. He just plummets 30 feet, crashing down onto the tables below.
Is he dead?
The source says he lay motionless, probably dead or severely injured. Either way, he's out of the fight. And while everyone's distracted by that, Chris manages to unlock a side door, their potential escape route.
Okay, guys down. What about freeing Johnston from the dungeon?
Merrick and Chris race down there. Just as they arrive, Arnott the archpriest, leading the final assault, breaches the dungeon and confronts Sir Oliver.
The final showdown.
Yeah. Oliver's defeated, drunk, probably knows he's finished. He begs Arnott for mercy. Arnott had apparently sworn not to kill Oliver.
So what does he do?
Something maybe worse, psychologically? Pure humiliation. He physically picks Oliver up, flips him over the railing, and dumps him into the disgusting slime pit that runs through the dungeon. A pit full of waste and filth.
Oh, that's brutal.
Totally breaks Oliver's pride.
Yeah.
Arnott then forces the shamed knight to hand over the key to Johnston's cage.
Johnston's free. Now they just have to get out and use the marker.
Right. The four of them, Johnston, Merrick, Chris, Kate, race back up into the outer courtyard. It's an inferno now. Fire, fighting everywhere. They have the marker, but they remember the crucial requirement.
2 meters of clear space. All around.
Exactly. They need an unobstructed sphere 2 meters wide for the quantum field to establish correctly and synchronize them back to the present. The courtyard is impossible. Too much debris, too many bodies, too much chaos.
So where can they go?
The open field, outside the main gate. It's their only chance. They sprint for the gatehouse. Just as they get through,
What?
the castle armory explodes. Huge blast. Maybe fire reached the gunpowder stores Johnston helped make? It adds to the confusion, but also the danger.
Do they all make it?
Almost. As they run for the clear space, Merrick realizes the final drawbridge behind them is still up. Oliver's men are appearing on the walls above the gatehouse. They need those few extra seconds.
What does Merrick do?
He stops, turns back, starts lowering the heavy drawbridge himself, cranking the chains, buying the others the time they need to get clear.
Oh, no. He's sacrificing himself.
He sees Chris, Kate, and Johnston reach the open field. He looks at the countdown timer on his own wrist display. It drops below 1 minute. He knows he won't make it back to them in time. He stays, lowering the bridge, watching them prepare to activate the marker. He misses the return window. Hashtag 4.3, the final fate of the historian. So, back in the present, in the ITC facility at Black Rock, New Mexico, Chris, Kate, and Professor Johnston materialize successfully.
They made it. Just barely.
Just barely, and only because of Stern.
Stern, the physicist back at ITC. What did he do?
While the team was gone, Stern discovered the full extent of the damage caused by Kate's gas explosion at the mill. That blast had sent a shock wave back through the quantum connection or something, and it shattered the water shields in the transit chamber.
The water shields, what do they do?
They're critical safety components. Contain the massive energy release during transit, help stabilize the quantum field, prevent transcription errors. Without them, returning would be suicide. Instant split.
And Doniger knew this.
Oh yeah. He saw the damage and ordered the return sequence halted. Said they couldn't bring the team back until the shields were professionally repaired, which would take hours. Far too long. He was basically writing them off.
Leaving them stranded to die in 1357.
Exactly. But Stern wouldn't accept it. He defied Doniger's orders. He had this ingenious idea, inspired by modern self-sealing car tires.
Self-sealing tires?
Yeah. He grabbed materials, plastic polymers, inflating membranes, and frantically rigged up temporary patches for the 3 shattered water shields. It was a desperate makeshift fix, but it worked. He stabilized the chamber just minutes before Chris activated the return marker in France.
Wow. Stern saved their lives. If he hadn't done that.
They would have come back like Traub, or worse, split down the middle. Stern's quick thinking and defiance made their return possible.
But Merrick wasn't with them.
No, Andre Merrick never came back. They waited, hoped maybe he had a delay, but nothing.
What happened to him? Did they ever find out?
Sort of. Later, Elsie, the archivist working with the team, found an old document. Something obscure, pointing towards Eltham Castle in England, a place connected to knights who served in France around that time.
So they went there, to the ruins.
They did. And in an old abandoned chapel on the castle grounds, they found it.
Found what?
A statue, a medieval stone effigy built right into the wall, like you sometimes see for knights or bishops.
And the statue?
It was Andre Merrick, perfectly preserved in stone, commissioned in the medieval period, clearly depicting him.
He stayed. He chose to live out his life back then.
It seemed so. He had immersed himself so completely, learned the skills, the language. Maybe he felt more at home there, despite the brutality. He lived and eventually died in the 14th century, and someone honored him by putting his likeness in the chapel. He became part of the history he studied.
That's kind of beautiful in a tragic way. What did Johnston think about it?
Johnston had this poignant reflection. He said Merrick loved that world, yes, but he must have always felt like a foreigner. Not because of where he was, but when he was from. He carried 7 centuries of knowledge, a modern consciousness that would always separate him no matter how perfectly he blended in. He could live there, but maybe never truly belong. Hashtag outro. You know, when you step back from the immediate adventure, the rescue, the fights, this whole deep dive leaves you with some pretty profound takeaways.
Absolutely. I mean, first, there's the science itself. The idea that the multiverse isn't just like a comic book concept, but potentially a real empirical feature of reality.
Proven, arguably, by that simple double-slit experiment.
Yeah.
That single photon interfering with its other selves across universes. It's mind-bending.
Totally. And then the flip side, the terrifying reality of what happens when you try to mess with that structure, the transcription errors. That image of HG, the cat.
Yeah, the split. It's such a visceral illustration of the physical cost of imperfectly bridging realities, a body literally at war with itself.
And contrasting all that high-tech weirdness is the destination itself, 14th century France. Not the romantic version, but the raw, dirty, incredibly violent reality.
The speed of the sword fights, the constant smell of smoke because there are no chimneys, those details make it so immediate, so authentic, which was exactly what ITC or Doniger was banking on monetizing.
Yeah, that cynical corporate angle is woven through it all, selling authenticity, even lethal authenticity. Which brings us to that final thought from the source material, the one about how we even think about the Middle Ages.
Right, this idea that the whole period was just one long, brutal, dark age. The source suggests that view wasn't entirely accurate, or at least it was heavily shaped later on.
By who?
By thinkers during the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. They looked back and perhaps deliberately painted the preceding centuries as dark and primitive. Why?
To make themselves look better.
Essentially, yes. To flatter their own era. To reinforce this comforting idea that history is always moving forward, that humanity is constantly progressing towards being better, more enlightened, more civilized.
A straight line upwards.
Exactly. But the source calls that linear view an utter fantasy. History is messier, more complex, progress isn't guaranteed. But that fantasy, that belief in inevitable improvement, it dies hard, as the author puts it.
So the tension isn't just between future tech and the past world. It's also between our idealized idea of the past and its often much harsher reality. That's a really interesting takeaway.
It is. And if the physics side of this caught your interest, the multiverse, The quantum mechanics the original work mentions, looking into researchers like David Deutsch, who really pioneered the scientific basis for parallel universes, and Kip Thorne for his work on general relativity, wormholes, that kind of thing. Foundational stuff.
Definitely some rabbit holes to go down there. Well, that was quite the journey from quantum foam to castle sieges. Thanks for diving deep with us into ITC, Professor Johnston, and the brutal, authentic world of 1357.
Hope you feel like you know a bit more now than you did when we started.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.